right after school, I got a phone call. A lady named Debbie Solomon from the West Coast, and no, sorry, from the East Coast, and she was a shark attack survivor. I usually don't pick up numbers that I don't know, and she was just a random number, but something told me to answer the call. And Debbie was like, I was in a shark attack, and I'm putting together a group of other shark attack survivors. If you want to lobby for shark conservation in Washington, D.C. And I was like, shark conservation, what is that? I knew a heck of a lot of what sharks are doing to people like myself. I had no idea what we were doing to sharks. And she encouraged me to watch Shark Water. It's a documentary by Rob Stewart, and it was on YouTube. And I watched it that night and was absolutely blown away by what we were doing to sharks, the importance of sharks for healthy ocean, stuff I had no idea about. And there was something inside of me that just said to help. Like, if I love the ocean, I should do this. And I called her back the next day. I'm like, what can I do to help? And it was a week later, we were in the halls of Congress and speaking to senators, and we got the Shark Act of 2009 passed. It closed a lot of loopholes on shark fishing and shark finning. And I remember just kind of being intrigued by the political process of things, and how different committees can forward bills, and you got your House and you got your Senate. And I thought it was really interesting and fascinating. And the next year in 2010, we had a bill here in Hawaii. I think it was chaired by Clayton He at the time. And I flew to Oahu and spoke up as a shark attack survivor, and I guess used my story and a bit of the irony of it to champion for the protection of sharks. And we were able to get that bill passed. It made the possession of shark fin soup in Hawaii illegal, contraband. Like, you had drugs. You couldn't sell shark fin soup. You couldn't have it in your home. You couldn't possess it in your vehicle. Completely illegal. We were the first state to do so. And soon after, other states followed. And we got that bill passed as well. And shortly after, I got invited to go on my very first shark dive. It was an island that's about the size of Niihau, that's off of the coast of Baja, California. It's about 240 miles offshore. And you take a boat 24 hours to get to this island. And at the time, I was working for Quicksilver. I was a staff photographer for them. I had this incredible underwater housing set up, and I had entered a surf contest, and I got second place, and I won. I think it was a GoPro Hero 2 or 3, no screen on the back. And for some reason, I just thought to bring that camera along on the trip. I don't know why, but I just brought this small little GoPro. And I remember the very first day leaving the port of Ensenada to go out to Guadalupe. It was my very first time on a big boat on a liveaboard. And we were still in the harbor, and they started serving us dinner on the boat. And they put on our plates, and, oh yeah, we got great food, and the boat starts leaving port, and all of a sudden we get into the open water, into the channel, and it got so rough, and the plates are swaying back and forth, and everybody started getting sick. And I had never gotten seasick before. I started feeling really sick, and everybody split when we went to our bunks, and basically slept for the next 24 hours going onto this island because it was so rough. Like, you couldn't really even get out of your bunk. And I remember, like, kind of in this sort of like dreamy state, hearing the anchor drop. And at the time, didn't know too much about boats, but knew that must mean we're here. And I got out of bed. Everybody else is still sleeping. The crew on the boats up, and they're setting the shark cage in the back in the water. And I was the first one out on the back of the boat where the cages were. And a guy was like, "You want to just jump in the water?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it was just me, myself, my little Hero 3 camera, and got in the cage. And I remember, like, you're hooked up to this hookah system, and it's like the compressors on the boat, so you can stay under as long as you want. And it's just the bars are pretty wide open, and you got like this really good 360 view with nobody else in the cage. And I turned to my left, and the water clarity is so incredible that it's hard to even gauge how clear it is, because there's just nothing there. It's just like this goes off into the deep blue. And looked this way, and then I glanced to my right, and right there was a massive great white just inches away, and the bar felt like it was just hovering right like this so far away. And I just started screaming in my mask, screamed in the regulator, bubbles going everywhere. I run up to the top. I'm like, "There's a shark." And they just started laughing. They're like, "That's why you're here." And I spent it would have been the next 8 hours, it felt like, in that cage with my GoPro, and just click, click, click. And that evening, I took the memory card out of the camera, and plugged it into my laptop, and put it into an editing software program, and seeing my very first shark images, and was like, this is the most badass subject on earth. This is way cooler than shooting any girl in any bikini.
Yeah.
And since then, it's been my favorite subject. I think it's the ultimate muse. Sharks are when you're underwater with them, you realize how beautiful they are, how elusive they can be. Certain species, you've got to go to the end of the world to find a photograph. Technically, they're very difficult as a subject for photography. They're fast, really hard to catch focus sometimes. You're got to worry about your gear, whether you're free diving, scuba diving. I really like the challenge of it. And I think that there's been Hollywood's done an incredibly good job of demonizing a shark. And I try in my photography to offset that and to show sharks in a different way and use the portraiture techniques that I learned in college, photographing sharks. And I almost imagine like they're a human. And like the number one rule in shooting people is you always want the nearest eye in focus. So I will take my little focus square and the nearest eye on the sharks in focus. I compose it where you crop joints and different things on a person. Do that with sharks as well. And then I think most importantly, I try to look for like, it's called anthropomorphism, finding a little bit of yourself in an animal, whether it's a smirk, a smile, some humor, where you can really see empathy. And I think if you can see a little bit of yourself in something, it makes you want to learn more about that subject. And by learning more about it, you want to protect it because you eventually love it. And that's really the goal of my photography.
That's insane. I'm like trying to understand it as best as I can. Yeah. Like, I mean, I get I get it, but I don't get it.
Okay, yeah.
Because like, yes, they are beautiful creatures. Like animals are beautiful, wildlife and all that. But like, I can't imagine being up close to one. It's just like, I'd be so scared for my life.
Yeah. The very first thing I noticed is the eyes of a great white. Like you see Hollywood films of great whites, it's always black death. The eyes are pitch black. There's no life in it. When you're underwater and the sun up high and it's beautiful visibility, you look in a great white's eye and it's got the most beautiful blue marble-like eye. And you can almost like you can see behind the eye and the intelligence and the soul and processing you and, sizing you up and all this intelligence going on. And this, sharks have been on Earth for 450 million years. They've been on Earth longer than trees and survived major mass extinctions, and most of Earth disappeared. They're the OGs of the ocean. You almost like can feel that energy when you're underwater with them.